Good afternoon and welcome to today's presentation of the 2018 Expert Webinar Series. Today's presentation will be entitled A 6-Step Blueprint for Simple and Effective Marketing, presented by our very own Div Bhansali, Vice President here at Accountants World. I will be your host today. My name is Thomas Provine. I am a marketing coordinator here at Accountants World. If it is your first time joining us for one of our expert webinar presentations or one of your first times using GoToWebinar, just a couple pieces of information about the GoToWebinar dashboard. The attendee control panel, you use the orange arrow to expand and hide the panel. You can toggle your audio options, whether it be your computer audio or phone audio, underneath where the green arrow indicates. The slide deck handouts are towards the bottom of your dashboard. You can download today's PDF. And if you have any questions that you would like the presenter to answer or any administrative type questions, you can do so by toggling down to the questions tab. Also with today's webinar, we will be live tweeting the webinar using the hashtag #ExpertWebinar. So if you are on Twitter, please follow along with us in that regard. There will be CPE credit offered for today's webinar. If you're an accountant or CPA and looking to obtain CPE credit, there are 3 things that you need to do in order to get CPE. You need to attend the live webinar for no less than 50 minutes. You need to respond to all of our polling questions. There will be 4 in total today during the webinar. And you must submit the post-webinar survey within 24 hours following the webinar's completion. You will be receiving your CPE within 3 business days. And is there anything else that you need to do? Well, yes, you need to add webinar@accountantsworld.com to your trusted email list. This is to make sure that the CPE award does not get caught up in your email's spam filter. We are also offering a very interesting webinar called More Control, More Profit in Your Accounting Practice. I'm sure many of you that are in the accounting profession have heard about client accounting services. It's very exciting, and we do offer a webinar that teaches you all about putting more control and more profit into your accounting practice using CAS that will give you more control over your client engagements and will make sure that your practice runs more smoothly, with results of our unique approach being over 25% more profits for you. If you're interested in signing up for our upcoming webinars, you can register at accounting-webinar.com, or you can just answer our 4th polling question today, which will indicate whether or not you want to be signed up for our webinar tomorrow regarding client accounting services. Now, up to our presenter. Our presenter today is Div Bhansali. He is the Vice President of Marketing here at Accountants World. He has over 16 years of experience in leading digital and offline marketing for technology companies. He's been a speaker at many industry functions, speaking about different marketing tactics, and he is a faculty member at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. We're very excited to have him, and I also say he's a pretty good boss too. I like having him as a boss. So without further ado, here he is, Mr. Div Bhansali.
Tom, thank you so much for that introduction, and welcome to all of you who are joining today. I'm really excited to have this opportunity to share some of the insights that that the research has been showing about marketing and that I've had from my own experience as well. As Tom mentioned, any questions related to marketing, either strategy or tactics or whatever, feel free to write them in at any point during the presentation. I'll try to get to them during the poll breaks and potentially other times as well. If there are any still left at the end of the presentation, I'll be happy to take them there also. So what we want to do today is to, as much as possible, try to demystify the idea of marketing. And I think when we really think about where marketing is right now, there's something that's fundamentally changed. And if you see in front of you right now, if you're responsible in any way for the growth and success of your firm, congratulations, you're a marketer. If you are on social media for your company or responding to social media questions or requests or issues, if you are involved with what emails go out, newsletters, promotional emails, tax updates, client accounting updates, whatever it might be. That is a marketing activity as well at this point. And a lot of the channels that we're going to talk about today are ones that have been democratized. And what I mean by that is um, 10, 15 years ago, the majority of tools were built for quote unquote marketing professionals. They were built for people who had this foundation of experience, and the thought was that that foundation of experience meant that you could use these tools more effectively and interpret what was going on there. Um, Everything that we're going to talk about today is something that you can actually do yourself. Now, you may choose not to. You may choose to get help, and we'll talk about the trade-offs on both of those. I think there's good reasons to go either the do-it-yourself route or the get help route. But the point is that avenue is open to you, and that's something that is really unique. In the 15 plus years that I've been involved in marketing management, we're at a really unique time in that. So it's a chance to not only say all of us are playing a marketing role to some extent or another, but also to understand that we've got the power, we've got the tools, and we can learn how to use those tools and strategies as well as possible there. So before we go ahead and get started, I'd love to get a little bit of a better sense of who we have with us today. So Tom, would you mind opening up the first poll question today?
Absolutely. Here we go. We are launching the first poll question. All right. So you should be seeing the poll question on your screen, and the poll question reads, I currently play blank in my firm's marketing. So is that you currently play a primary role? You currently play a supporting role? You currently play a strategic advisory role? Or you currently play no role, or no, this question does not apply to you. So I'm starting to see the answers come in here. And just another reminder, you do have to answer all of our poll questions today in order to qualify for CPE. And the CPE award will be emailed to you following the webinar presentation, and it should get to you in about 2 to 3 business days. All right, Div, it looks like we have over 90% that have answered the poll question.
Yeah, let's give it about 15 more seconds here for folks to get their vote in. And so I'm just trying to get a sense here of whether you are currently the person who is primarily responsible for your firm's marketing, especially true if you're a one-person firm. You play a supporting role to someone else. You play a strategic or advisory role in terms of leadership for marketing initiatives, or it's not applicable, or you don't play a role in that. So, all right.
All right, I'm going to close the poll question in 3, 2, 1. All right, let's share these results with everybody, Div. Okay, so it says about 61% play a primary role in their firm's marketing. Div, does that surprise you at all?
Yeah, it's probably a little bit higher than expected, and I know we always draw a healthy share of smaller firms, and I think in smaller firms, many of the folks who are with us today would tell you that they have to wear every single hat. So I guess it shouldn't be surprising from that perspective. But that's great because then hopefully a lot of what I'm talking about today can go directly into action for you as well. And for those who are in supporting roles, obviously you can share this presentation afterwards with folks who are in more primary roles as well, and let us know if they have any questions as well there.
All right.
All right, great. So when we think about beginning our marketing planning, and this is a great time of year to have this conversation, before we get to execution, thinking from a planning perspective, I think the majority of organizations, whether we're talking about accounting firms or any other business, particularly in the B2B space, generally there is one primary thing that you're managing to, right? So is your primary constraint time? In other words, I have a fixed amount of time that me or a staff member or both can spend on marketing, and I want to maximize the value I get out of that period of time. Is your primary constraint budget? I'm a small shop, or we have lower margins because of the type of work that we do, and so I've got a hard cap on how much I can reinvest into my marketing. Or are you managing to outcomes? And so managing to outcomes would mean I want to put in the either myself or with staff or with external help. I want to put in the time and the budget to be able to achieve X number of new prospects within the next year, or I want to acquire Y new customers, or I want to have a certain retention rate that's higher than what I currently have right now, right? So these are all the sorts of questions and the sorts of challenges that marketing is well equipped to play a role in influencing. I will mention that generally speaking, what my experience in talking to firms has been is typically one of time or budget becomes a constraint before you get to full-fledged outcomes. In other words, you may have goals in mind, and we'll talk about how to indoctrinate those goals and start to work towards them. But you may say, that's my goal as long as I don't cap out on the amount of time I can spend or the amount of budget that I can spend. So it's important for us to understand what our constraint is there, because the way in which we're going to plan and execute is going to be pretty different based on which of those you're choosing to, and the channels that you're going to choose to maximize will also be different based on that as well. So I want to talk a little bit about managing your marketing efforts. Whoops, looks like we had a quick close there. Let's go ahead and reopen this. Apologies for that. I know you all are shocked that Microsoft PowerPoint might have any issue. So let's go and get that back open there. So if you're managing your marketing efforts to time, the first thing that I would plant in your mind is that the 80-20 rule often applies in marketing. Not always, but often. And what I mean by that is the first 20% of time that you invest in marketing strategy development and executing your marketing often has well over half of the payoff, right? So we're going to think not in terms of perfection and complete optimization. We're going to think in terms of allowable improvement given the constraints that we have, right? We want to be realistic because in my experience, nothing turns off people from doing their own marketing or knowing how to manage somebody external for marketing quicker than the sense that I just don't have the time for it and therefore I'm going to do nothing, right? And it's an easy trap to fall into. And so I want to empower you to realize that the 80-20 rule or something close to that, perhaps we call it the 70-30 rule, really does apply in many of the marketing tactics that we're going to talk about. So think in terms of, that's fine, I've got a cap on the amount of time I can do, but there are still steps I can take to continually and slowly improve along the way. The other thing I would mention is, as in your professional work, whether you're primarily an accounting firm, an audit firm, a tax firm, payroll, virtual CFO services, whatever it might be that you're spending the majority of your time on, I'm sure that part of your firm's success is dictated by a series of very concrete processes. And I had Tyler Wynn on for a webinar 2 weeks ago. I know many of you were there at that webinar as well. And Tyler spoke about how to grow a high margin payroll practice and the steps that he's taken in terms of marketing and operations and staff to allow that to happen over the course of the last 6 or 7 years. And one of the questions asked him is, how do you manage your practice? And he said, everything has a checklist, right? My goal is to institutionalize everything into a checklist so that whether it's myself doing it, one of my senior staff, or somebody new who joins, there's a clear set of expectations there. And I'm sure that's something that all of you are familiar with. That's an organizational skill that accountants generally bring very heavily to the table, right? So I want you to use that on the marketing side as well. Now, I would say that the one difference between marketing tasks and your tasks as an accountant or CPA are that typically here, you're not going to attain perfection. There's very rarely such a thing as perfection in marketing, right? So, getting back to that first point there, what we're trying to do is optimize what we accomplish given the limits that we have, especially the limits in terms of time. So let's start at the beginning with an annual plan. Now, if you Google annual marketing plan or marketing plan document or whatever, you're going to see some of these templates come up that are incredibly complex. And I would say for your purposes, largely useless, They are far too complex. They are far too detailed. And I think most importantly, they're far too inflexible for what you're doing. We said over 60% of people said that they're the primary person doing the marketing here. Um, so if you're doing the marketing, you don't need a marketing plan that is written as if you're presenting to a committee and getting their feedback and then creating a second draft and so on. What you want is something that feels honest to you and is authentic to your goals. So skip the formalities. We're not looking to create a super formal document, but we do want some level of concrete measurable goals in here. So what I recommend is concrete goals for 90 days, for 180 days, and for 360 days. And the reason we do that is 360 is the point at which you make broad strategic changes. You look at the environment outside, you look at your competitive landscape for your services, you look at what others are doing, you look at what's working and not working for you, and you make significant changes based on that plus your own strategy. What are the things that you hope to accomplish? 90 days is much more tactical. It's looking at your checklist and saying, here are the things that worked as I expected, or perhaps even worked better than I expected. Now, here are the things that I don't feel are working quite as well. So what are the tweaks that I can make there? So your role at 90 days is not to be a strategist, it's to be a mechanic, right? We're going to make small tweaks, small adjustments as we go along. And then 180 days, I think of as sort of the things that you don't want to wait a full year to re-examine, right? So you're not necessarily doing a full-fledged marketing review every 180 days, but you're looking at each portion of your marketing with low to medium level of granularity and getting a sense of what's really happening there. And are there any things that we dramatically need to alter that we cannot wait another half a year for? So we want that plan to reflect an evaluation of what's worked or didn't work in the past. And one of the things, if you've got a team of people, whether it's yourself and other staff members, or if your staff and part of your time is spent on marketing and part on other tasks, but you're going to be working with a partner or with the founder of your firm, this requires honesty, right? There's no blame game here. This is simply saying, in an honest way, here are the things that have worked for us in the past, and here's how we know that they've worked. Right? Again, back to concrete and measurable. And here are things that really didn't work for us. And marketing is a trial and error practice. That's really how it works. If I walked into any of your firms later on this week and you said, well, Div, go ahead and give me a marketing plan, I would ask you a series of questions, and then I would say, here's the 5 or 10 or 15 things I'd like to try over the course of the next year. And I guarantee you that several of those are not going to work at all, right? But I can't tell you right now which of those are not going to work. If I could, I wouldn't do those things, right? I would save your time and your money on that. So there's a high level of uncertainty, especially as you're getting a new marketing plan off the ground. And so we need to be humble enough to accept that and positive looking to the future enough to accept that as well. I generally find, in terms of putting together a marketing plan, one question I get a lot is what format to use. Do you write this as a Word document? Do you put this into Excel? Do you do this as a PowerPoint? It's really up to you. To some extent, it's based on how strategic you want it to be versus how detail-oriented. So if you're primarily working from a budget constraint, a very tight budget constraint, you might want to start with Excel to make sure that you're not going into the red. Versus your expectations. I would say the majority of people who are doing marketing plans for small organizations tend to do it in either Word or PowerPoint. I like to draft it in multiple sittings, let it ruminate for a little while, come back to it, sort of repeatedly, discuss it with multiple people, including people outside of your organization if at all possible. Get their feedback on it. And what am I missing here? Are there other opportunities that I should be examining? Are there things that I feel strongly about that may not actually have real data or logic behind them? And then finally, realize that this is a working document. So my marketing plan and my marketing budget for 2018, I am now up to the 9th or 10th version of it. And I think 7 of those versions have been changed since January 1st. And the reason is that we get more data, and I immediately realized there's some new opportunity that I need to take advantage of that I hadn't realized at the beginning of the year would be so prevalent. Or I look at something that we tried and it's been a disaster, and I've got enough data at this point to know I don't need to continue to put energy and money behind it, right? So, but I like to go ahead and codify that and treat this as a fluid document, because when I get to the end of the year, I don't want to be looking at January's document with 0 changes in it across the year and think that that's my starting point, because I've already learned things 90 days in, 180 days in, and throughout. So I want those to be in some way codified. You don't have to spend a ton of time on that, but I want those to be in place within my annual plan there. Okay. So the next thing I wanted to mention here is if you're going from a time-based perspective, if your primary goal is to maximize how much you get done in a short period of time, set up a time-based checklist and have daily, weekly, and monthly marketing tasks associated with it. So here's an example, and this is sort of a synthesis of things that I've seen online from marketing agencies and consultants, and some of the notes that I've taken over the years in my independent consulting work as well. So here's a sample, and obviously you can adjust this for your specific needs. So on a daily basis, you may want to go ahead and check your social media and engage with followers. So whether you have 10 followers, 50, 100, or 200 on social media, you don't want them sitting out there for 2 or 3 or 4 days on social media, having asked you a question or expressed a concern and you haven't replied back to them, right? That's obviously bad experience for that individual, and it's also going to look bad for you if other people are researching your company as well. We know for many prospective clients, one of the first things they'll look at is your website, and another one of the first things they'll look at is your social media accounts. So you want to make sure that you are addressing any questions or concerns or comments that come in from your followers. Honestly, most days that's going to take you less than 10 minutes to do that. On a weekly basis, I would say you could do your weekly tasks potentially within less than an hour. And again, as I said before, my big caveat here, this is a sample checklist. You may be doing other activities and other channels that require additional time on here, and that's totally fine, right? But I want to give you a sense of sort of how comfortably you can manage this on a day-to-day basis. So you may say, I'm going to spend 30 minutes every week asking for referral business, right? And that may mean one-on-one conversations. That may mean drafting a letter to go out to people, right? Whatever it might be. So I think that's something you want to make sure you're following up with as the needs and opportunities are there, right? If it's a good time to ask for a referral from somebody, you don't want to wait to the end of the month or end of 3 months to do that. You want to go ahead and take advantage of that quickly, and we'll talk about how specifically to do that. You want to manage your online reviews. I'll talk about the importance of that, and then also show you a little bit of what Tyler Wynn explained to myself and our audience a couple of weeks ago about how he does it, which I think is just a fantastic process. And then finally, if you're doing any pay-per-click advertising, where you're paying for each click to your website from search engines or from Facebook or from LinkedIn, 20 minutes a week, right? Now, do most full-time marketing professionals spend 20 minutes a week on looking at their pay-per-click marketing? Absolutely not. We certainly spend more than that. But I think within 20 minutes, what you'll be able to find on a weekly basis is everything is pretty consistent from the week before, or something has really hit and I'm seeing much better results in terms of clicks, or my cost has gone down, or something's wrong here, right? Now, the cycle of pay-per-click marketing is such that you don't really need to manage it on a day-to-day basis. And I know I can hear in my ear some of my marketing brethren yelling at me that that's not often enough. But in reality, for what most of you are doing in terms of marketing, it absolutely is. You can certainly go ahead and look at it once a week, spend 20 to 30 minutes, and feel pretty good about that. Okay, so we're talking about a week's or an hour's worth of weekly activities there. On a monthly basis, you want to go ahead and monitor your website, and I'm going to show a tool that can help you do that in addition to obviously you just going through your website and making sure that things look good. And I should point out something else here. I don't think that you're going to wait a month to check on your website and make sure that your website's not down, right? That's a pretty obvious thing to do. What I'm talking about is a little bit more rigorous monitoring of what's happening with your website, and sort of making adjustments on the basis of that. And then finally, reporting and analysis of overall marketing efforts. So again, how granular or how high level you make your annual plan will determine how granular or high level you need to get with looking at your monthly results, right? There are many small businesses that will look at their website traffic, that will look at the overall amount that they're spending on pay-per-click advertising and how many clicks it's driving, and they'll look at how many new clients they got and where those clients came from, and they'll get up to date on social media, and that's it for the month, right? That's the extent of what they'll do on a monthly basis, and then they'll wait until the end of the quarter or until 6 months to do a more detailed analysis. I think that's fine, right? My goal is not to overstuff you to the point where you're not focusing on the things that have the greatest impact, right? I want to make sure that you are feeling balanced and you're focusing on the most important things. So let's talk a little bit about managing marketing to a budget. So perhaps if you're a smaller firm, you might say that the single most important factor is my budget, right? I've actually got more time to spend than I do money to spend. So here's a rule of thumb for marketing spend, and I should have put rule of thumb in blinking neon letters here. Firms that are less than 5 years old, or those that are looking to grow aggressively, I typically recommend that they should be spending 10% of their gross revenue on marketing. Now, that is a ballpark estimate based on firms I've spoken to, based on industry data that's been published on CPA trend lines and Progressive Accountant and other places. That is not a hard and fast rule, right? But if you are looking to grow aggressively, a greater investment will make a difference there. If you're a well-established firm and your growth expectations are more modest than they were years ago, then you can fall in anywhere between 3 and 9% of revenue. And this is where the average firm these days falls into. Right, I believe I read that the average firm is at about 4% or so. And I suspect that number is a little bit underreported if they accounted for everything that they're doing. But let's say in the 4 to 5% range. So I'm sure some of you have the question, why do I have to spend so much? And the simplest answer is you don't know what will work when you begin to invest, and so it helps to cast a wide net. Now, can you shoestring it? Can you spend significantly less than 10% or 5%? You can. And I'll give you an example in terms of websites. You can put up a brand new website for free. You can go to Wix.com or WordPress.com. You can run the software yourself, use their builder tools, which are really pretty straightforward, and you can go ahead and build a site yourself for absolutely free. You can step up and use a website builder tool like Website Relief from Accountants World. We offer Website Relief. Runs about $50 a month, and that gives you a website that is specifically geared for accounting and CPA firms. And so it introduces all sorts of tools, calendars, other functionality, as well as a link to a client portal as well. You could also have someone build you a custom site using WordPress or using some other tool. And that would give you full branding, and it would give you the ability to customize every single tool so that you're maximizing what you're able to offer to your clients. A good one of that is probably going to cost you around $3,000 or so, plus some annual maintenance costs. And then finally, you could go fully custom, right? And this is what a lot of larger firms do. And that could cost you multiples of a WordPress customized site, right? It can cost you tens of thousands of dollars. So all of these are available to you. And if you are a small firm, or if you are highly constrained in terms of time or money, there's no reason for you to explore options 3 or 4 there, right? Your choice is going to be between the 2 less expensive options there. But if you're a larger firm, You want to be able to serve your clients very, very effectively with a lot of information and access to their data in a secure way, and you want to be able to provide a customized experience to every type of prospect who might visit you, then it may make more sense for you to look at that, right? So the extent to which you go up or down on the scale for websites, for all the other things we're going to talk about, is really dependent on your specific needs and what you value at any given point. So before we continue, I'd like to go ahead and do poll question number 2. And Tom, if you want to go ahead and launch that, I'm going to step away for a minute to get a little bit more water here.
Sure thing, Div. I'm going to launch the second poll question right now. All righty. So here it is. It reads that, and you all should be seeing the poll question come up. It reads, my firm's primary marketing goal over the next year is, and this is a select all that apply question. Your primary marketing goal is to grow your client base, increase revenue from existing clients, improve client satisfaction, or it might be something else altogether. And once again, this is a select all that apply question. So if there's 2 answers or 3 answers or all 4 that apply to you, pick the ones that you think are most interesting. And just a reminder, folks, if you have any questions regarding some of the material that Div is presenting right now, you're more than welcome to put a question down in the questions tab, and we'll be more than happy to answer it during or following the presentation today. And also just another reminder that we are live tweeting this presentation, and I am using the hashtag #ExpertWebinar, which is going on right now. So let's see how many people are finished here with the poll. We have about 90%. I'm going to give about another 10 seconds for everybody to get back here. All right. All right. I'm going to go 3, 2, 1. All right. And the poll question is now closed. And let's share this with the audience. Okay, Div. It looks that everyone's primary marketing goal is to grow their client base, with that being at 74%, and 43% saying to increase revenue from other clients, and 41% saying they want to improve their client satisfaction. I guess growing, everybody wants to get more sales and more clients. Does that answer surprise you up at the top?
I think this ratio is about what I would have expected. I think it's interesting that the revenue from existing clients and improving client satisfaction is very, very similar. And obviously those are related to one another, right? Happier customers, more revenue over the long term from them as well. So what we'll talk about over the next 15, 20 minutes will help to address hopefully all 3 of those. So that's great feedback. All right. All right, Tom, are you seeing the your website slide?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. So I want to talk a little bit about what matters for your website. So your firm, if your firm has been around for a while, you may have had a website for 10 years, maybe even more than that. And websites as a primary marketing channel have now been around for 20 years, basically, give or take, right? What has happened over the past 12 months in terms of what's important on your website, I would say is a more important shift than anything that happened in the 5 to 7 years before that, right? So we are at the sort of precipice of a really big change in website development and website theory, at least for marketing websites. And so I want to talk in order about what I think the most critical factors are for you, right? And obviously there are other things that matter for your specific situation. But the number one factor that's most important for your website is that your homepage should load in 2 seconds or less, right? This is something that when I was building sites, let's say 5 to 10 years ago, this was a small nice to have. This wouldn't have even made the top 5 criteria for our website being successful. It is now, in my belief, it is number 1 on the list right now. And the reason for that is twofold. Part of it is that just the differences in customer behavior. And so, or viewer or visitor behavior, I should say. Oops, sorry about that. Forrester Research conducted a study end of last year, early part of this year, that estimated that sites lose about 25% of their traffic if the homepage takes longer than 4 seconds to load, right? You take more than 4 seconds, you lose 25% of your traffic. And by the way, question that I get a lot of times is this only true for consumer websites, or does this apply for business websites like mine as well? There's no indication that this applies only for consumer websites. The data seems pretty consistent for B2B websites as well. So you lose 25% of your traffic if the homepage takes longer than 4 seconds to load. You lose another 25% or more if it takes over 6 seconds to load. So by the 6-second mark, you've lost half or more of your traffic, right? And this may seem really, really harsh and drastic. Think about your own behavior, especially when you're on a mobile device, right? How much patience do you have as a visitor? I can tell you, I don't have much. Right? We want to be connected to where we expect it to go as quickly as possible. So this is the single most important thing that you can do. And I'm going to mention right now, if you look at the bottom of this slide, you'll see a free resource that I've called out called Website Grader. It's at website.grader.com. No www at the beginning or anything, just website.grader.com. There are a number of tools out there that are built for non-technical people to be able to assess the health of their website and the speed of their website right now. And this is one of my favorites. It will give you recommendations for your website that some of those will be sort of techie suggestions that they're going to give. But the thing I really like about it is it will identify for you the things that are working well, the things that are yellow coded, or the things that are red coded, i.e. really impacting your website's performance. And those are the same sorts of things that Google cares about when they try to figure out where you should slot in on search results. So it's important that we follow those same factors as well. So they can measure for you how long your homepage is taking on average. They'll do pinging from different places in the country to make sure that your homepage is loading quickly. Second, make every single page on your site secure. That means it should have a HTTPS instead of a HTTP at the beginning of the web address, right? Now, if your site is just a marketing billboard, if it doesn't have any client portals, it doesn't have access to any private information, doesn't have downloads, simple site, you might be wondering, why do you need to have a secure website? Well, the main reason is that browsers have sort of dictated that that's become a de facto standard at this point. Chrome started this, and now virtually every major browser has followed their lead. They now alert users if a site is not secure. And they will ask the user, do you want to continue? And as you can imagine, if you were visiting a site for the first time and the browser warns you, hey, this is not a secure site, do you want to continue? There's a strong chance that you're going to say no at that point, right? The browsers are set up to protect the consumer in this case, not to protect the business. And so you're going to lose 50% or more of traffic. So, anybody who has a newer browser who's updated their version, they're now getting that by default. They have to turn that off if they don't want that. So it's really important that you go ahead and get your entire site secure. You want to make sure that there are obvious paths to contacting your firm. Now this sounds really, really obvious, right? Of course, I'm going to have my contact information on there. I did a look into, I believe, about 35 firm websites. I did this 2 to 3 years ago. I looked at 35 different firm websites, and I would say that only about 15 of them did a very good job of making their contact information easily accessible. Some of them only supplied a phone number, but didn't say where their physical address was. Some did vice versa. Some didn't have an email address, and there are people who will want to contact you by email. The question of what contact information should I list is all of the above. You want to give people the opportunity to contact you in whatever way is easy, and you don't want to be hiding this deep into the website or one small link at the footer and it's not available anywhere else. You want to make it really obvious how to do that. You should clearly state what makes us unique. Right? So if you're copying the exact same language as another firm 4 miles away from you, you're obviously not differentiating yourself at all. And one of the main questions that visitors to a site have is, how are you different from what I already expect from a firm like you, right? What is it that makes us unique? And you want to clearly call that out right on the homepage. Your page title, which is on your browser tab, the words that come up on there, you want to include your company name, but also a very brief description of the value that you provide. So I'll give you two examples here. The second one is what a firm in Knoxville was using, and I've changed their name, but they said Johnson Allen LLC, graphics by Blue Light Design. Well, the graphics by Blue Light Design clearly isn't benefiting that firm at all, right? It was just part of the code that was written onto the page, and it was one of the first things on the page, and so it showed up in the page title. Not good. You don't want to be promoting Blue Light Design. You want to be promoting what makes your firm interesting or unique, whether it's your level of experience or the services you provide or whatever it might be. So better is that first one, experienced CPA in Knoxville, Johnson Allen LLC. You can flip those and have the name come up first, but I generally find it's better to go ahead and have what makes you special come up first rather than your name. And again, as I mentioned before, definitely recommend you check out Website Grader. If there are other tools you're using and you want to know if those tools are good, I'm happy to have you email me, and I'll be happy to respond to that offline. So let's talk about how we drive the right prospects to notice you. And I'm underlining right here to make sure that we're focusing on the people we want to be focusing on, right? So word of mouth in the middle there. There was a survey recently that said 92% of respondents trust recommendations that they get from people they know. And I actually found this hilarious when I thought about this more, that I'd actually like to know who the other 8% are. If you don't trust product recommendations from the people who you're asking, maybe you should be hanging out with different people. But anyway, so word of mouth is at 92% direct credibility. Same study or same company did a study and found 77% of respondents find online reviews to be credible. Now, of course, not all reviews are created equal, and we'll talk about that more in just a couple of minutes, but there's no question that overall, both of these top channels provide credibility and therefore a much stronger likelihood of action from a prospect. Then we have paid advertising, and we'll talk about pay-per-click advertising a little bit later on as well. And it's low credibility. People know what an ad is, and they know that an ad doesn't come with credibility. And it can be medium to high cost depending on how you do it and which channels you're using. I want to make it clear, my message is not to tell you not to do it. I've done digital paid advertising for 16 years now. I've seen the results that it can drive. But for the most part, I think of paid as what you should do after you master the inexpensive, high impact stuff. And that's why we'll get to that later on in there. So in terms of setting a foundation for your business online, even before we get to step one and talk about reviews and testimonials, step 0 is to make sure that you're listed online and that you're listed correctly online. So after today's presentation, I want all of you to go to google.com/business and do a search for your business there. If you're not already listed on Google, you want to go ahead and claim your business and publish your listing, right? Because in a vacuum, if your business is not listed on Google, Google will come up with other things to show in its place, which might be competitors or might be what other people are saying about you elsewhere, right? You want the first thing that shows up to be your location, your office, and any reviews that you get from there. You want to go ahead and make sure to update your business info. Google uses a scraping tool to collect your business information. I was talking to somebody about this at a conference last year. My guess is that their scraping tool is about 95% accurate in terms of getting your correct business name, your correct phone number, your correct email address, all of those things, your correct physical address. But that still means 1 out of 20 times it's not correct, right? So obviously you want to make sure that that's updated. Add photos, and I've got a little asterisk there. Yes, I know you're an accounting firm. You wouldn't think photos would be something that you would need to do. But there are many marketing experts who believe that Google gives a bonus in terms of search indexing and search priority to local businesses who include photos, because Google gets to publish that and keep people on google.com. This can be a photo of your team. It can be a shot of your office. It can be the front cover of a report that you've published. It doesn't matter. Any of those help. I think you want to make it something that's relevant to your audience there. You can then track your firm's performance on Google Insights. So you see on the top right there, sorts of stats that you'll be able to see in terms of what's happening on your website. If you're already using a tool like Google Analytics or some other paid tool, that's great. There are plenty of good ones out there. I've used Google Analytics. We've used Smarter Stats. We've used a number of other tools. But at a bare minimum, I would say take a look at the high-level data that you see on Google Insights, and you can use that to improve your website and get a sense of who's coming to your site. Now I want you to go ahead and do that same setup on Yelp and Facebook as well. So Facebook, the biggest benefit of creating and maintaining a business profile on Facebook is that anytime anyone is talking about you on Facebook, it will by default link to your business page. So it goes out and tries to find the most appropriate business page to there. That can send extra clicks to find you, and that means more leads as well. Also, when you have content, which we'll talk about in a minute, you can then publish it on Facebook, and Facebook is a great tool for publishing content as well. Quick word on Yelp. There's a growing backlash against Yelp, and a lot of people who feel that Yelp is only appropriate for things like restaurants and bars and so on, and it doesn't do well for other service companies because it doesn't allow you to sort of manage what's on there. My response to that would be, I think there are plenty of flaws on Yelp, but I would go ahead and set up on there just so at least your business is listed. It's better for it to be listed than not listed, and you get to put up your correct information. A big part of the reason that people go to Yelp is just to get the contact information. So if they end up there instead of on Google, you want to make sure that they're routed correctly to you. And then finally, LinkedIn. Set up a company page and build followers. This is especially true if you are primarily going after organizational and corporate clients rather than individuals. So I want to talk a little bit about testimonials and reviews and sort of the power of that. And the best way that I can sort of show this is, I mentioned before that Tyler is sort of my go-to person in terms of what he's done there. So I want to go ahead and show you Tyler's website. First of all, you'll notice here that it's been sitting on this page for a while. So what it shows is a small pop-up called an overlay. And I'll talk about sort of why I like these and what you can do with that in just a minute. But mainly, I want to take you over to his testimonials page. And so you're going to see lots and lots of testimonials here. And you'll notice most of them aren't like one or two sentences, hey, these guys did a good job. Most of them are quite detailed. And part of what this has done for him is Google just absolutely loves testimonials on websites. Google thinks this is just fantastic. They see somebody else's name associated talking about your business. That's exactly what they want. They want something that has more objectivity than the own words that you put into there. And so not only is this good on Tyler's site, but if we look at what this does, if you do a search, he's located in Tulsa, Oklahoma. If you do a search on payroll services in Tulsa, the first ones listed here are all paid advertising, right? And then we get to sort of the heart of the page, which is the map in Tulsa and the three most prominent responses for this search. You'll notice that Tyler's firm, Cirrus Payroll, comes in at number 1. They have 100 reviews with a 5.0 average rating, which is just astounding. Southwestern Payroll, one of their competitors, has 9 with a 4.1. ADP, this is going to shock all of you, has a lower average rating of 3.0, right? Think about how powerful this is for people who don't even know about Cirrus Payroll, but just know they need a new payroll solution in Oklahoma. The amount of work that's being done by these results here, and it's largely based off of what he's doing on his testimonials page and other things that he's doing well as well. So we want to really try to focus on getting as much value out of that as possible. So I'm not going to go through all these. These are in the handout, and you can go through them. And as I put up at the top there, these recommendations have been shamelessly stolen from Tyler. You can go to accountantsworld.com/Tyler and see his whole presentation on how to build a high-margin payroll practice. But to me, the most important one is number 2 here, or 1 and 2 together. The biggest mistake people wait about getting reviews and testimonials is waiting too long. You want to get testimonials as early in a client relationship as you possibly can, right? You deliver substantial value to a new client, which could be a specific deliverable, a report, end of year work, tax time, whatever it might be. You wait 3 to 4 weeks after that, and then you send a personal email requesting a testimonial. This is the level at which you'll get peak interest from somebody to go ahead and do this for you, right? Because they haven't yet experienced any of the ebbs and flows of working with you. They haven't experienced any of the downside, hopefully, at this point, right? They haven't gotten used to it and just sort of taken it for granted. This is new and fresh and exciting for them. Give them specific directions on where you want to post. You can send a direct link to Google reviews and say, just click on here and write a review. It only takes 2 minutes. Do not coach them on what exactly to say. Google and Yelp are very, very proficient at finding out when people have been coached. They know which words to look for. They know repetition to look for. And then they will delete at least your review and possibly your entire account. So don't do it. Let people say whatever they want to say there. And you've got to remind them because they're clients. You know they're going to need a reminder. Overlays. So we saw this on Tyler's website, a little pop-up that comes up and typically asks for your email address. This is a great way to build up your email list and get more people that you can email content to in the future, right? Now, the middle part here, wait, aren't pop-ups annoying? Couple of key points here. Overlay tools are far less intrusive than old pop-ups used to be. They always allow you, any reputable company that offers them allows you to quickly X out of them. And most visitors appreciate them as long as they're not overly intrusive, as long as they're not coming up over and over or moving around when you're trying to X out of them or things like that. Typically, all you want to ask for is email address. Every additional field you ask for is going to significantly reduce the number of people who are going to be willing to give that information to you. And make sure that you tell signups exactly what they're going to get in return. Not just, I'll send you information. Say, I will send you a monthly newsletter, or I'll send you tax and financial tips, or I'll send you special offers, or whatever it might be. A couple of suggested platforms there. I've used both of these. Unbounce and Opt-in Monster, and I've had good experiences with both of them. If you've got any questions on that, I'll be happy to answer those. All right, so now you get those people in your email list. What do we want to do with them? We want to deliver content to them. So some of what's on here, in the interest of time, I'm going to go through really quickly here. Content marketing is a long-term strategy based on building a strong relationship with your target audience. And the key here is relevance. You want to give them stuff that they find useful, right? And it's valuable for both existing clients and for prospects as well. So generally, you want to talk about topics that are at the intersection of your expertise and your client's needs. And here's the way that I explain that. If you were at a party and someone asked what you do, and then they said, well, tell me what you're really interested in. What are the things that you feel strongly about? Right? What would be your answer at that point? The things that you know are interesting to other people, i.e. prospective clients and existing clients, but that you also have quite a bit to say about, right? Is it what people should be doing differently than they've been doing in the past? Is it tips for their clients' businesses to grow? Is it things they can do to reduce their risk, right? What is it that is at the intersection of what you're really strong in and what your clients need? You want to make it easily digestible. Top 10 tips or strategies, 5 figures you should know, case studies, all good examples. How much content? The ideal, I think, is that you write 2 long pieces per year, right? Which might be 1 case study and 1 set of strategies for your clients, right? That's a great start. If you can do more, that's fantastic. If you'd rather do 4 or 5 short pieces instead of that, that's fine as well. Before I kind of get to content distribution, I want to specifically call out one kind of content, which is videos. Videos are the single greatest untapped opportunity to differentiate yourself in your firm. And the reason is that twofold. Number one is that Google loves videos. And I'll show you the power of that in just a second. The other one is whatever you get in video format then becomes really easy to turn into text as well. And so now you've got both a written thing that you can send to people in an email or put up on a blog post or put on your website, and you've got a video as well. You've now got 2 pieces of content basically for the price of 1. And so I want to show you a quick example here. this is Moz.com, which is for marketers like me, and this is a super geeky blog post about the difference between URL structure and information architecture, right? And this guy did an entire video. All right, so instead of putting you all to sleep, I'm going to go ahead and pause it at that point. But you can see he put up, I believe, about a 5-minute video, 5 to 6 minute video here. So this video, he then had it transcribed. He took the screenshots, put those in here as images, and then did a video transcription. There are video transcription services that can do this super cheap if you don't want to do it yourself or have your staff do it, right? All the images are in here as well. Now, this guy is a agency person. He did this for Moz.com and then also put it up on his own site. And now if I search on URL structure versus information architecture, which is something that has 74 million results, the first, second, and third results for that all have to do with his content, right? It's on his own site, it's on Moz.com, and then it's Moz.com off of a keyword there, right? Incredibly powerful what that one video was able to do. Now, I can already anticipate that you're going to say, yeah, but I don't want to end up on a video. I'm going to look terrible on there. No, you won't. You do not need to look like a model. You do not need expensive professional video equipment. You basically just need lighting, a stand, and a microphone. None of these need to be expensive. One of my friends puts out a lot of videos, uses a $20 mic for all of her videos, and it works just fine. Nobody ever notices any issues on there. So it's much simpler to do than it used to be. And that's the second big thing I want to drive home about video. Not only is it more impactful in terms of search results than ever before, but it is also easier to do than ever before. So think about what you could spend a minute or 2 minutes or 4 minutes talking about with a whiteboard behind you, or just you talking into a camera at a side angle, or put some PowerPoint slides in the middle of it, or whatever feels comfortable to you, right? I'm not concerned with the how. I'm concerned with you getting started in thinking about videos as part of your marketing strategy. And then I'll finally mention videos like pizza, when it's bad, still pretty good. People just don't care that much about whether you are super polished in your videos, right? That's not the key thing here. What people care about is that you're able to articulate something, they get to see your voice, they get to put a face to all the words that are on the website or on an email, right? And that's incredibly powerful. And I'm going to finish up on this slide. There's a couple of slides after this, but you can review those yourself, and I'll be happy to answer questions. Okay, now you've got that content. You've written something, or you've produced a video, or you've got a blog post, or you've got bullets, or a case study, or whatever it might be. Content works because of stress-free multiplication. That one piece of content you've got needs to turn into 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different things. Publish it on your blog, send it to your email list, send it via direct mail. Letter still works. That's still a good thing to do. Add that information to your brochure, share it on social media, send printed copies to other influencers in your area. I met somebody who sends copies of their tax tips to lawyers in the area and tells them, here's the accountant who did this work if you want to get in touch with them. You want to repackage it and repeat as much as possible there. I've got some information. Oops, sorry about that. I'll go ahead and just quickly pull this back up here. And take 30 last seconds here. And then I talked a little bit about pay-per-click advertising. Basically, LinkedIn, if your primary audience is corporations and organizations. Facebook, if your primary audience is individuals. I had a little bit of sort of the anatomy of a paid ad and what you should be focusing on there. And I'm happy to answer questions about that as well offline. And finally, thank you so much for your time today. And I'm glad we just barely got in under the hour there.
All right, Div, that's terrific. Now that it's over, I just want to do the last poll question here, and then we'll get maybe 1 or 2 questions. So here's the final poll question that we're going to launch for everybody. Okay, after today's presentation, my area of marketing emphasis will be, your website, word of mouth or reviews, content creation, paid advertising, or other. And we are getting all the results in. And while we get some of those results in, Div, let's go and see a couple of questions here. Virginia asked, is there any other way to market other than your website? You mentioned a lot of different areas, Div. Mentioned customer testimonials. You mentioned some paid advertising, a lot of different things. Would you care to elaborate on that further?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about word of mouth or content creation, eventually those things drive to your website as well. So if you put all those things together, your website is probably about 50 to 60% of your marketing sort of channel in terms of the people who are coming in will hit that 50 to 60% of the time before they hit anything else. Depending on what type of work you do, social may be growing up to 25% or even more. And then obviously you have things like email and direct mail pieces and so on, which are always great to do as well.
All right. And then Lisa just came in and asked if that some IT companies offer website accounting auditing services, excuse me. Is this worth the money?
Yeah, so great question, Lisa. I would say start with auditing your site yourself from something like Website Grader, and there are other tools available as well. Moz.com, which I showed before, has a pretty interesting website audit tool as well. What I want you to do is get a sense of whether you are in the green, in the yellow, or in the red before you go ahead and hire somebody else. Because if you come back and the independent tools say, listen, you're doing fantastic and you're pretty much on target, you don't necessarily need that external validation. If you see pain points coming up from your small audit, then it's definitely worth looking at hiring somebody external to look at it more closely.
All right, terrific. And then I will answer Nazar's question. Yes, the recording will be available following the webinar today. All right, so we will close up the polling question here, Div. We had about 92 people, 92%, excuse me, vote. So we
Yep,
will
and we do have,
close.
just want to remind people, there is one more poll question coming up in just a second here.
Yep. We'll quickly share those results for this one. And it said their website at 41%, followed by word of mouth or reviews at 31%. So that seems to be a good thing there. Would you agree, Div?
Yep, absolutely. And the word of mouth reviews, for those of you who are constrained by money more than anything else, it's a great place to start.
All right, terrific. Okay, so we'll close the poll question here, and we will ask our final poll question here of the day. Div, do you have any parting words before we begin the poll question?
No, let's go for it.
All right, terrific. So we are going to ask all of you folks if you want to be signed up for the More Control, More Profit in Your Accounting Practice webinar on Thursday, 11:15, tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. The answers are yes, sign me up. I cannot attend, but sign me up for another date, or I am not interested at this time. So we are providing those for you right now.
And just as a reminder, that webinar will, in probably 30 to 35 minutes, will show you the steps that you can take using Accountants World's Accounting Power Solution and using some differences in processes, the ways in which you can, over the course of a year, grow your accounting profits by 25% or even more, as we've done for firms across the country.
All right. So with about 82%, we are going to we'll give it about another 10 seconds here. All right. All right, I'm going to give it 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're going to close that. All right. First off, I want to thank everybody for coming today. I would like to thank Div for being a great presenter for our presentation. Div, if you could hand over the presenter controls to me for the last 2 seconds here.
Sure. And I'll just remind people, if you have any other questions for me that you'd like to discuss one-on-one, feel free to just contact me at marketing@accountantsworld.com, and I'll be happy to try to help you out.
All right. Thank you so much, Div. And just a reminder, our next expert webinar, and actually our final expert webinar, will be on December 12th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time with Ron Baker. He is the founder of the VeriSage Institute, and his webinar is Cost Accounting RIP. So that should be a very interesting topic. And you can register at 2018webinars.com. Once again, my name is Tom Provine. I want to thank Div Bhansali for giving us this great presentation today, and we hope to see you at our next expert webinar, and maybe even at our More Control, More Power Accounting webinar tomorrow. All right, thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Tom.